Good afternoon, everyone. Please be seated. Routine proceedings. Introduction of bills. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, I'm tabling the sequence for the consideration of departmental estimates in the Committee of Supply and for today only.
Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This week we recognize Allied Healthcare Professionals Week. With dozens of professions and more than 7,000 individual employees across Manitoba, Allied Healthcare Professionals support care in Manitoba and touch the lives of nearly every single Manitoban in this province. Today we have with us in the gallery many Allied Healthcare Professionals, including physiotherapists, orthopedic technologists, educators, spiritual health practitioners, community mental health workers, regional primary care connectors, team leads for housing and housing supports, and MRI technologists. Can we just take a second to say you folks are awesome? Thank you for being here. The unique skills and diverse roles of allied health professionals cover the full range of preventative, diagnostic, treatment, and technical services supporting Manitobans at every stage of their care journey. Allied health professionals have significant expertise providing specialized quality care and services across the province in our hospitals, laboratories, clinics, ambulances, long-term care homes, private homes, schools, in the community, and more. Our government is taking action to support and strengthen the healthcare system through retention and recruitment of these amazing healthcare professionals. Manitoba was well behind other jurisdictions by not having initiatives like 7-day-a-week discharges across sites in this province for 7.5 years under the PCs. We changed that after hearing directly from allied healthcare professionals on our listening tour. They said that this was important, and so we worked with them to take action. We're now seeing the benefits of that change with frontlines improvements and flow through our healthcare system. We've also added more than 180 allied healthcare professionals to the system in just the last year, and more are being hired and trained regularly. We're establishing a dedicated allied health role in our retention and recruitment office. And Budget 25 invests $40 million in annualized funding for direct care and allied health professional staffing in personal care homes for our province's seniors and those who need that care. We're working directly with these invaluable healthcare experts to practice to their full scope. We want them practicing to their absolute full scope of their expertise, and to enhance services like breast cancer screening and provide more care in rural and northern communities. Our government values allied healthcare professionals and is proud to recognize the positive impact that their work has on the lives of Manitobans each and every day. We all benefit from their dedication, compassion, skillful delivery of care, and are deeply appreciative and grateful to have them contributing to our health and well-being across our great province. So thank you to all allied healthcare professionals, not only this week, but every single week during the year. And I'd ask all members of this House to join me in thanking the allied healthcare professionals across Manitoba, and certainly the folks we have here in the gallery today. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I too would like to welcome our guests to the gallery. As the daughter of an allied health professional, I know just how vital your work is to Manitoba patients and to our healthcare system. We appreciate you, and we recognize all the hard work that you put in every day on behalf of your patients, your clients, residents. Thank you. Diagnostic services, emergency care, seniors care, community health, mental health, women's health, dental health, rehabilitation, care for Manitobans with disabilities, spiritual health providers, you name it, there's a allied health professional behind it. They are a lifeline to Manitoba patients in our healthcare system. And as we discussed just in the chamber this morning, allied health workers are vital to women's health care. They are mammographers, sonographers, social workers, midwives. They are the ones who will be at the front lines of increasing breast cancer screening, improving birthing services, and ensuring women are safe in our communities. Unfortunately, under the current NDP government, there have been challenges, Honourable Speaker, in allied health in particular. Prairie Mountain Health has had to suspend at-home birthing services for 6 months due to a shortage of midwives. Allied health workers are also vital to emergency care, and widespread shortages of paramedics, particularly in rural Manitoba, put rural health care at risk. And here in Winnipeg, a recent MGEU survey of Winnipeg paramedics found that 71% have seriously considered quitting and 93% have experienced violence on the job. That needs to stop, Honourable Speaker. Earlier this year, the Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals surveyed their members and found that 59% of respondents said morale has dropped in the last year. 62% said their workload has increased. Increasing workload, staff shortages, and concerns about retention show that the NDP government is not taking this issue seriously enough. So to all of our amazing allied health workers, I want to say thank you for being there. In a medical emergency or at our most vulnerable moments and beyond, you are critical to our healthcare system. Thank you for all that you do.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I ask for leave to respond to the Minister's statement.
Does the honourable member for Tyndall Park have leave? Leave has been granted. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to begin by recognizing and thanking all of our allied healthcare professionals, those who are on the front line and behind the scenes, who bind our healthcare system together each and every day. This includes paramedics, physiotherapists, lab technicians, dietitians, occupational therapists, social workers, and so many more. Their skill, compassion, and resilience are essential, not only in times of crisis, but every single day in our hospitals, clinics, and communities. Now, Honourable Speaker, the reality is many of these professionals are feeling more disheartened today than ever. Staffing shortages persist. Many allied health professionals are overworked and under-supported. They've seen colleagues burn out and leave the profession entirely. We are forever grateful that they continue to show up for Manitobans despite not always feeling respected. Morale in healthcare is at a breaking point. It's not just about fair wages, though fair compensation is important. It's also about being valued, having a voice, and working in an environment where professionals can actually provide the care that they are trained to deliver. The government's words of appreciation this week are welcome, but more importantly, action needs to be taken. I directly asked allied health professionals what their hope is, and they said real, meaningful engagement, funding and staffing commitments that actually reach the front lines, and a clear plan to restore dignity and stability to a system that has been in crisis for far too long. In closing, Honourable Speaker, I would like to thank those who have joined us today in the gallery and the Minister for bringing forward today's statement. Thank you.
Member statements. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today, I'm absolutely honoured to recognize an important community leader in Union Station who is soon retiring, Fernanda Hodgson. Fernanda joins us in the gallery today, and I want to acknowledge the incredible amount of support she's provided to Union Station through her role as Executive Director at the Day Nursery Centre. Fernanda is retiring after 46 amazing years of working in early childhood education. Fernanda is an exemplary community leader whose work has been vital to childcare in Manitoba. In addition to being the Executive Director at the Day Nursery for 24 years, Fernanda also serves on many boards and in community in a way that really helps our neighborhood and well beyond. It's clear that through her work, Fernanda has been dedicated to providing essential support for families in Union Station, and for that we are forever grateful. Whether directly or indirectly, Fernanda has touched the lives of many throughout her career. When asked what her favorite part of being an ECE is, she said that it's seeing the impact of her work and what it's had on families. Fernanda would always ensure that parents had trust in Day Nursery Centre. Parents always felt immense gratitude that they had a safe place they could drop off their kids. She is also proud that she continued building the vision that the founders had for Day Nursery Center, especially for families living in the inner city. Her support for the community has been invaluable, and Fernanda's leadership and dedication have meant the world to families living in our neighborhood. Fernanda, we will always remember the mark you've left on Union Station. The generations of children and families will forever benefit from your leadership, care, and compassion. We thank you and we congratulate you on your retirement. I ask that all members of this House join me in thanking and congratulating and wishing Fernanda all the best on her retirement. Thank you.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to recognize two outstanding leaders in law enforcement who have made lasting contributions to their communities. Chief Ryan Hunt of the Winkler Police Service has shown exceptional leadership, earning the respect of his team and the community through his integrity, commitment, and modern policing, and a deep engagement with the people he serves. Chief Hunt leads with heart, and Winkler is stronger and safer because of him. Equally deserving of recognition is Chief Brad Naduzak, who has dedicated over 40 years of service to the city of Morden. His unwavering commitment and compassion have left a profound impact, and his recent receipt of the King's Coronation Medal is a fitting tribute to the leader who has always served with honor and respect. Both chiefs embody the very meaning of public service. I commend the strong partnership between Morden and Winkler departments in fighting against drug trafficking through joint force operations like Project Timus and Project Hat Trick. They've removed dangerous drugs and firearms from the streets and arrested over 20 individuals connected to organized crime. Their work reflects not only effective enforcement, but also commitment to education, prevention, and recovery, addressing the root cause of addiction and crime. The words thank you don't even come close to how much you are both loved and appreciated by your community and police forces you serve. To Chief Brad Naduzak and Ryan Hunt, and to every officer in the Morden and Winkler Police Departments, your dedication, leadership, and tireless effort are deeply appreciated. It's fitting that during the National Police Week, we honor you and all those who are committed to striving and protecting our communities across Manitoba. Thank you for all that you do. Colleagues, please join me in honoring our police chiefs from Morden and Winkler who are in the gallery today.
The honourable member for Tuxedo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Tuxedo constituency is blessed to have amazing green spaces. Today, I want to highlight the largest urban forest in Canada, where the city meets nature, the Assiniboine Forest. The forest spans 700 acres comprised of aspen and oak trees, bringing natural charm to the urban city setting. It is a dream for outdoor lovers that is free to access year-round. Lined with 6 different trails for cycling, walking, and birding, Assiniboine Forest is home to a wide variety of plants and wildlife. Within a few minutes of walking on a trail, you will feel like you have been transported from the city to the bush. Now, the Nurse in Me also wants to lift up the positive impact that Assiniboine Forest can have on your mind, body, and spirit. Spending time in nature encourages activities like walking and running, which are beneficial for your overall physical health. But being in nature can also support your mental health, as it is a natural nervous system regulator, which are fancy words to say decrease stress. Honourable Speaker, green spaces are vital resources for you to decompress and log off from the overstimulation that surrounds you in an ever technologically dependent society. And that is why Assiniboine Forest is so special. We are fortunate to have access to what is becoming a rare urban commodity, equitable access to green space. Honorable Speaker, I encourage you and members of this chamber to go on an adventure and explore the Assiniboine Forest. The holistic health benefits will serve your body, mind, and soul. Thank you.
The honourable member for Roblin.
Honourable Speaker, we are joined in the gallery today by Manitoba curling royalty. It is my honour to rise in the House today to recognize 3 remarkable athletes from the constituency of Roblin who were inducted into the 2025 Manitoba Curling Hall of Fame earlier this month. Don McEwen is one of the most accomplished curlers in Canadian history. An Olympic gold medalist in 2014, Don is also a 2-time world champion and a 5-time Canadian women's champion. Her dominance extended to the provincial level, where she claimed 5 Manitoba titles. Dawn had already been inducted into the Hall in 2015 as a part of the legendary Jennifer Jones Olympic team, and now she receives individual recognition for her incredible career. Renora Westcott is another standout competitor from the Roblin constituency with a career marked by grit and longevity. A Manitoba junior champion in 1996, she went on to win the Manitoba Women's Championship 3 times in 2010, 2011, and 2017, and reached the Canadian Women's Final at the 2017 Scotties Tournament of Hearts, an achievement that reflects her consistency at the highest level of competition. And finally, Mike McEwen and his team were honored for a decade of excellence from 2008 to 2018. For 11 consecutive years, they reached the Final 4 of the Manitoba Men's Championships, including 8 Manitoba Men's Finals, captured back-to-back provincial championships in 2016 and 2017, earned a bronze at the Brier, and won 7 Grand Slam titles. For 10 consecutive years, they ranked among the top 7 in the country. Honourable Speaker, these athletes have represented Manitoba with skill, integrity, and fierce determination. Their legacy inspires a new generation of curlers, and we in Charleswood and Headingley could not be prouder. Please join me in congratulating Don McEwen, Renora Westcott, and Mike McEwen on their induction into the Manitoba Curling Hall of Fame.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to recognize exemplary work of the Westman Hospice Association, a shining example of compassionate service in the Brandon community. Founded in 1992 as the Westman Association for Terminal Care Hospice, or WATCH, the charity found its start by identifying the need for dignified end-of-life care, with many volunteers stepping up to help. Its founder, Professor John English, built the foundations of what has become a very profound service dedicated to patients with a terminal diagnosis and their families. The association's cause is noble and brings a level of dignity and compassion to those seeking hospice services. It provides a patient not only comfort as they transition into the next world, but offers assistance to families who are navigating one of life's toughest journeys. Their services are provided completely free of charge, courtesy of their dedicated and trained volunteers. From in-home and facility visits, caregiver respite, grief and loss support, and community education. Honourable Speaker, these types of conversations are rarely had, and unfortunately, end of life and grief are natural aspects of life that require the utmost care, and more Manitobans are learning about these types of services that are available to them. Hospice care is an opportunity for those receiving it to achieve personal growth and spiritual healing in what is a precious time for them and their loved ones. There are many nurses, specialists, and volunteers that help patients understand their choices for medical treatment. Under the leadership of President Terry Miller, Vice President May Lyon, Treasurer Linda Noto, and Secretary Kim Melnick, the Association continues to promote an atmosphere of home-like hospice facility, space that resonates with dignity and compassion that all Manitobans deserve. I ask that everyone join me in applauding the Westman Hospice Association, with Linda Noto and Rob Lavin in the gallery, as well as Daniel Nowoselsky from the Canadian Cancer Society, for their compassion, dedication, and leadership in the community.
Prior to oral questions, there are quite a few guests in the gallery that I would like to introduce. First off, I would draw attention to the public gallery where we have with us today Louis Philippe Sauvé, former Bloc Québécois Member of Parliament for the Montreal riding of LaSalle Amard Verdun, and they're here as a guest of the Honourable Member for, I don't have that, so we welcome you all here today. I would draw attention of all honourable members to the public gallery where we have with us today from Day Nursery Centre, Fernanda Hodgson, Robin Burnett. Also in the public gallery with us today are allied healthcare workers for Allied Healthcare Professionals Week, Jason Linklater, Tanya Burnside, Rochelle Ham, Nicole Spence, Whitney Purville, Tim Smith, Amanda Macbeth, Iffy Iwadonbi, who are guests of the Minister of Health, Seniors Long-Term Care, and the member for Union Station. On behalf of all honourable members, we welcome you here today. Also seated in the public gallery today, we have Marianne Mahaichuk, Manitoba Prospectors and Developers Association, Sean Campbell, Manitoba Prospectors and Developers Association, Aaron Jansen, Tria Products, Dennis Ballard, Association of Manitoba Chiefs, A.J. Albert, Alejandra Gonzalez, Manitoba Prospectors and Developers Association, Jim Sinclair, Manitoba Prospectors and Developers Association, James Campbell, Manitoba Prospectors and Developers Association, who are guests of the Honourable Member for Riding Mountain. On behalf of all honourable members, we welcome you here today. Some of these guests have previously been introduced, but I would like to introduce everyone that's here with them as well. So in the public gallery, we have Mike McEwen, Don McEwen, Vienna McEwen, Jane Askin, Wayne Askin, and Rona Westcott, who are guests of the Honourable Member for Roblin, and we welcome you all here today. And lastly, but far from least, Robert Young and Declan Young. Declan Young is celebrating his 13th birthday today. He chose to come to the Legislature to celebrate his special day. They are guests of the Honourable Member for Fort Richmond, and we all welcome you here today. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I want to welcome all our guests, and I want to give a special happy birthday welcome to Declan. Honourable Speaker, yesterday the Premier called a 25% increase to property taxes, and I quote, a good thing, end quote. If the Premier is okay with a 25% increase in property taxes, then surely wages have increased 25% to match. Can the Premier tell Manitobans what the average wage increase has been under his canoe government this last year?
The Honourable First Minister.
Honourable Speaker, it's great that we get to welcome people into the gallery to watch democracy in action, but it's not every day we get a birthday celebration in the gallery. So on behalf of the province of Manitoba, happy birthday, Declan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics showed that wages went up in Manitoba last month. The PCs froze wages. They actually used their time in government to come here and pass a law that said people wouldn't get a wage increase in Manitoba. That's on them. Of course, we're adequately funding the school programs in Manitoba, including a universal school nutrition program, and we're giving you $1,500 off your property taxes this year. going to get better next year, $1,600 tax credit then.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Once again, Honourable Speaker, a non-answer by the Premier. He says they went up, but how much did they go up? 2.7%, the lowest in Canada under this NDP government. Average weekly wages show that Manitoba had the worst growth in the country under this Canoe government. But the Premier demands more taxes and more money from families. Why does this Premier think it's okay, and I quote, a good thing, end quote, to tax Manitobans by 10 times the increase of their wage?
Wow.
The Honourable First Minister.
Since taking office, we've cut income tax. We've cut the provincial gas tax on a permanent basis, I would add to you. And we're also giving you that $1,500 property tax credit. We're taking real steps to save you money. The members opposite gave everyone in Manitoba zeros when they were in government. But when we want to talk about percentages, we should keep in mind that they've also accepted a 25% rebate from you, the taxpayer, when it came to their election campaign. What did they do in that election campaign? I'll remind you. They ran ads attacking the victims of a serial killer. That's right. The landfill ads. It's the worst thing that's ever been done in the history of Manitoba politics. And yes, they accepted the taxpayer rebate on that. They spent $650,000 on their ads, which means they got about $160,000 back from you, the people of Manitoba. Apologies are empty words unless they're followed up by actions. Will the member opposite return the taxpayer rebate that the PCs received for the landfill ads?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Manitobans, you see it right here. Half-truths by this Premier. He talks about a tax rebate, and yet this very Premier wants to increase that from 25% to 50%, taking more money out of Manitobans' back pockets. This Premier wants to do that. More half-truths by him. So I will ask the Premier again, will the Premier finally admit that a 25% tax increase on hardworking, middle-class Manitobans is not the right thing to do?
The Honourable First Minister.
$1,500 tax credit this year, $1,600 next year, permanent cut to the gas tax, and a cut to income taxes. We are saving you money. But the member doesn't answer the question because he wants to keep your money that was refunded to them for those very distasteful landfill ads. Again, we're talking about the worst thing that's ever been done in the history of Manitoba politics. And because of the rules of election financing, they got 25% of the money they spend on those disgusting ads back. They spent about $642,500.06 to be exact, which means that they got about $160,000 rebated to them to you. Rebated from you to them. So again, if you want to talk about hardworking Manitobans' money, stand up and explain, through you the chair, Honourable Speaker, stand up and explain to hardworking Manitobans who divested and rejected those divisive ads, explain why you're keeping $160,000 of their hardworking money for the landfill ads. That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
Honourable Speaker, you can see that this Canoe government is getting ready to come into opposition. This is question period. They're supposed to answer the questions that we ask on behalf of Manitobans, and he refuses to answer them. So I'll pivot to another question. Since November, the NDP have delivered on only 9.8% of their promised 800 hip and knee replacements. 9.8% sounds about right for a health minister that got a D- from the Manitoba Nurses Union. Just another empty promise by the MTP. Will the Premier apologize once again to Manitobans for failing them?
The Honourable First Minister.
A little context for everybody watching here at home. We're talking about surgeries being delivered in Selkirk, something that never happened under the members opposite. So again, they come here to the House and ask questions. These amazing new things you're doing in healthcare, why can't you do them more quickly? Well, the good news for the member opposite is we are on track to delivering 800 surgeries at this site. Good news, right? But again, they want to evade accountability for the choices that they made. They chose to run those ads about the landfill victims. It was terrible. It made no sense. It turned Manitobans off. Yeah. They now recognize it, and you can see because the heckling bunch is oddly quiet here today. So, the money that they got from you, your hard-working taxpayer dollars that they accepted for those terrible, terrible ads, $160,000 of their rebate went to pay for the $650,000 they spent on those ads. Are they going to return that money? Maybe they could give that to compensation to the families who were harmed by those ads. Maybe they could give that money to community serving organizations who do good work.
Time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, in Manitoba, you can see it once again. The Premier and this failing Health Minister refused to answer a question about health care. 79 surgeries out of 800 promised surgeries is not a passing grade. It's a D- for the Health Minister. In the month of February alone, there were more people waiting for hip and knee surgery than the province could provide in a whole entire year under this Canoe government. The wait list is growing at twice the rate that this NDP government can even handle. Shame. Will the Premier apologize to Manitobans for misleading them once again, for failing them, and will he fire his Health Minister who got a D-?
The Honourable First Minister.
So again, I'll repeat this. The answer that the member seeks was provided in the first set, but I'll do it again. Okay, we're on track to deliver 872 surgeries at the Selkirk site, a site that never delivered any surgeries under the member opposite. So the Health Minister here, I'll say it again, best Health Minister in the entire country. More surgeries than expected at sites that never had surgeries under the PCs. But the member opposite wants to turn away from this substantive issue. The landfill was such an important issue, they decided to turn their whole election campaign on it last time. They could have just said no landfill search and not made a big deal about it, but they chose to run the ads. They spent $650,000 on those ads. Manitobans hated it. They were sent packing. Then they applied for the election rebate, which means that party, the same PC party that huffs and puffs here every day, accepted $160,000 of your dollars for those landfill ads.
First time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Manitobans, you heard it once again. This Premier thinks that 79 surgeries out of 800 is a pass. He thinks that's acceptable. You know what's acceptable? Over 85,000 procedures were done on this side of the House.
Order.
Under the Diagnostic Surgical and Recovery Task Force. 85,000, 79 by the NDP. 2 years in government and the NDP are still staring in the rearview mirror. Nurses say they have no idea where these supposed new nurses are. Of the 90 paramedics the NDP promised, they've only hired 15% of them. It's embarrassing, it's disgusting. And now surgeons can't seem to find anything to back up the claims that they've had all these new surgeries. Will the Premier finally apologize for misleading Manitobans, and will he admit for Manitobans to see that a D- is a failing grade and he should fire his Health Minister today?
The Honourable First Minister. Order. The Honourable First Minister.
About 100 surgeries delivered in that short window of time, on track for 872 surgeries at Selkirk in the whole year. People in the Interlake Eastern region appreciate that. People across Manitoba appreciate that. But when it comes to failing letter grades, the member opposite got an F in the Winnipeg Free Press, and he can't bear to face up to it. Brandon's son, an unimpressive first step as leader, and you see why here today, that they said, I quote, Manitobans are left to ponder the sincerity of his apology and whether he really believes his party did anything wrong, end quote. Because again, here are the facts. The PCs chose to run those despicable landfill ads. They spent $650,000 on them, and then they applied for the election rebate and got $160,000 of your money back. So before they come forward and claim any sort of righteous indignation on behalf of hardworking Manitobans, I would say this: return the $160,000 that the PC party got for those despicable landfill ads.
The Honourable Member for Swan River.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I asked the Minister about the lawless slaughter of the Carmenaria caribou herd in Newtland Lake Provincial Park, and the Minister wouldn't comment. Today, details of that were released. What is the Minister doing about this senseless waste of caribou? And I tabled the release and photos of this unsustainable madness.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Honourable Speaker, it's clear that on this side of the House, this government is committed to listening to Indigenous communities, listening to hunters, listening to lodge owners, listening to everybody about how we can manage wildlife sustainably here in this province. It's all about working together. It's about bringing folks together. And that's why our minister has been hard at work in engaging with communities across this province. We're going to make sure that when we are working when in terms of wildlife in this province, we're always listening to one another, and we're always bringing Manitobans together to find those solutions.
The Honourable Member for Swan River.
Yeah. Honourable Speaker, unborn calves were left in the snow. Pregnant mothers were slaughtered. To quote the lodge owner, snowmobiles were chasing caribou across the lake, and there were piles of dead animals everywhere. What is the minister doing about this slaughter?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
The member opposite knows that the
Order. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member opposite knows that there's a current ongoing investigation. Of course, that involves the local RCMP. They're hard at work at investigating this particular incident. But importantly, they're also working alongside our conservation officers who are doing very good work in ensuring that the information that's being provided to RCMP, to law enforcement, and they're working hand in glove at every step of the process. Of course, that's only possible because we've increased the number of conservation officers that we have to do this kind of important work. And we've started to rebuild the damage that's been done by members opposite. There's more work to do. We're going to continue to work with law enforcement. We're going to work with lodge owners. But it's important for Manitobans to know we're reinvesting in wildlife and protecting our wild spaces.
The Honourable Member for Swan River on a final supplementary question.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Speaker. You would think the minister would at least have the compassion to look at those photos. These were crimes against nature and the very concept of conservation. These caribou were slaughtered, and that herd has already suffered a massive population decline. What is this minister doing to bring justice for the horrible assault on the herd's sustainability and very survival?
The Honourable First Minister.
I've spoken to people directly who live in this part of the province and who live off the land, and let me say this unequivocally. Anybody who participated in this has no respect for animals, has no right to be able to hunt in this province, and will be pursued and held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And we're going to do that by working with non-Indigenous people. We're going to do that by working with Indigenous people. Unlike the members opposite who want to divide. Yep. That's right. This member who stands and asks a question and is frothing at the mouth when he does so was oddly silent when the landfill ads were being run in the last election campaign. And he's silent now when the question of whether they're going to return 160 grand of your money, ill-begotten funds, misbegotten funds that they received for the 650 grand, and they applied for the rebate for. So any members with courage on the opposition benches, stand up today and call on your leader to return the election.
Time has expired. The Honourable Member for La-Vérendrye.
Honourable Speaker, our thoughts are with the many Manitobans currently under evacuation or at threat for active wildfires, including the Arama-Piney in my constituency. Coordinating provincial emergency management, including emergency response to prevent the loss of life and minimize property damage, is the mandate of emergency management. This spring's wildfires serve as another example of why the service is so critical. Manitobans' lives, along with their homes, depend on these services and the resources. Knowing and now seeing the importance of these services, I'd like to ask the minister why she cut the funding by 18%.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Members opposite know that the Emergency Management Organization activated the Emergency Coordination Centre to level 2 on May 5th. And we know that this is helping to create that situational awareness, coordinating with local law enforcement, local fire, local municipalities. And we know that the government has been bringing together all departments during this time, disseminating information, the data being made available again to those who are fighting fires on the ground. I just want to say, Honourable Speaker, I know the area very well. The member opposite knows that, and we're very, very concerned about the fire out there. Our hearts and our thoughts are with the firefighters.
This time has expired. The honourable member for La-Vérendrye on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, the Minister of Justice may not be aware, but the Minister of Infrastructure's own estimate book on page 68, it's there in black and white, the Canoe government is budgeting less for emergency management. Not just a little less, but a whopping 18% or $1.7 million less. Why did the minister fail to fight for Manitobans at the cabinet table? Or was this her idea?
The Honourable First Minister.
Honourable Speaker, today is a very serious situation when it comes to the wildfires raging across the province. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the firefighters who are stepping up and putting themselves into harm's way to protect lives, to protect livelihoods, and to protect property. We're talking about not just the Manitoba Wildfire Service and the Office of the Fire Commissioner, who are all doing great work, but also local fire, who's helping us to respond. The provincial resources helped to monitor air quality here in the city yesterday in response to the situation in North Transcona. Here in the province, we've also closed several provincial parks today and are, of course, responding to the fire that is being raised here just near Badger. In Nopaming, there is a complete evacuation. We are calling on all Manitobans, no fires, please. Do not set any fires, even if there's not a fire ban in your area. We can't afford to deploy resources away from the front lines. Again, in times like this, Manitobans draw together to support one another.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for La-Vérendrye.
Honourable Speaker, as the Premier just stated, they can't afford to deploy the resources. That's because they cut the funding. Yes. Wildfires don't take an IOU. They take resources and money. In my constituency, the Carrick fire is near my home, and I know firsthand the importance of funding the resources. Will the minister go back to the Premier today and ask for an increase in the funding? Yeah.
Order. The Honourable First Minister.
On behalf of the province of Manitoba, I want to send our support to all the Manitobans who've been forced out of their homes today. Again, there's about 40 permanent residents in Nopaming, many more seasonal, and then again, people on evac watch throughout. The member opposite knows full well that he is misstating the facts. This is an on-demand service. Yeah. Nothing will stand in the way of us saving lives and livelihoods across the province. But when it comes to financial resources from the public purse, give the election rebate back. 160 grand we could be spending on firefighting right now. If you don't want to spend the 160 grand that you took for those terrible landfill ads, then go door to door and explain that to people in all of those constituencies, I would say to the members opposite through you, the chair. But every single day that they sit on that election rebate, 160 grand of your money is another day that they flout the basic decency and compassion that the good Manitoba people show not only to each other, but also to those that we've left behind.
The honourable member for Selkirk.
Last week I asked the minister about a request made several months ago from the RM of St. Andrews for basic safety upgrades at the intersection of number 8 and 67 Highway. That request was tabled right here in the House. Has the minister reconsidered her inaction on these needed safety improvements?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And to answer the question directly, this side of the House, this government respects the opportune time of safety for people, no matter where they drive, in the province of Manitoba, for the betterment of the public interest and import. I want to assure that we will continue to investigate, but we also will continue to provide additional dollars to improve highway safety, improve highway conditions, basically to the members opposite, who constantly, for the last 4 years in their time in government, kept cutting and cutting and cutting the highways budget. And we are left with deteriorated highway conditions that are costing us 100% more when they were in government, that they could have fixed it sooner at a cheaper cost.
Good job, Ron. Well done.
Order, please. I'm not sure which member is pretending to be an owl, but they can quit. We're not children. We shouldn't act like children. The Honourable Member for Selkirk.
Well, that was just confusing. Last week, the minister also seemed confusing. She spoke about our many meetings. In fact, it was many, many requests for meetings before one single meeting took place. Surely it wouldn't be that hard to find in her notes what was discussed in that one single meeting. Why will the minister not act on a simple improvement that will improve safety and save lives?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Honourable Speaker, let me refresh members opposite of their priorities of financial support when it comes to highway conditions and improvement. 2018, they cut the budget by $347 million. 2019, they only spent $336 million on highway infrastructure. In 2020, they spent $333 million on highway construction.
Underspent again.
In 2021, they spent $397 million. I asked the member opposite who was asking me the question, look to your fellow to the right of you and maybe ask the ex-highway minister why he chose to reduce the highway expenditure for road safety to the people in the province of Manitoba.
Member's time has expired. Order. Order. The Honourable Member for Selkirk.
Honourable Speaker, I'm asking for simple safety upgrades. The RM has asked for these upgrades as well. Local emergency services called for these safety features. What else does a minister require before she's willing to do the bare minimum and erect a larger sign and a simple light?
The Honourable First Minister.
You know what I'm going to say, Honourable Speaker? Best infrastructure minister in the entire country. You know why I say that? Because this minister has brought forward $3.7 billion this year in infrastructure investment here in Manitoba. So, tell the RM to come on down. Tell your local community to come on down. And importantly, and very differently from the PCs, tell First Nations to come on down too. Let's all work together to build up this province. They decided when the worst crime was committed, a serial murderer, to run ads about that. Shame. Why did they do that? Well, here's the question that they have control over now. The election rebate, your money, 160 grand that they applied to get back off that 650 they spent on those terrible ads, are they going to keep it? What are they going to say to folks in Selkirk when you go knocking on doors and they ask about those landfill ads? People aren't going to forget about the ads. They will be paying attention to their
Member's time
actions.
has expired. The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, mining exploration in Manitoba has shown a decline under this NDP government. Will the minister tell the House where Manitoba ranks in terms of exploration expenditures among the 13 Canadian jurisdictions?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Immigration.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for the question, and we will be able to confer with the Minister of Jobs and get the exact number, but I would like to remind the member that under their watch, under their failed regime, Manitoba went from the second best mining jurisdiction in the world in 2016 and all the way down to 32nd in 2021.
That's not good.
What kind of record is that? And now they have the gall to come here and try to ask us these types of questions. Under their watch, 3 mines were closed under their watch in Flin Flon and in Thompson. And as those communities struggles, the PCs refused to spend any of the $11 million in the province's mining community reserve fund. Shame, Honourable Speaker,
Member's
shame.
time has expired. The honourable member for Riding Mountain on a supplementary question.
Well, Honourable Speaker, it's clear this minister doesn't know this file and isn't able to answer this question, so I will. Manitoba is now 12th out of 13 in exploration. What action is this NDP government taking to unleash our mining potential to make Manitoba #1?
The honourable minister for Labour and Immigration. The Honourable Minister for Labour and Immigration.
Honourable Speaker, this is a government right now that has the best interests of Manitoba at heart every single day. And we are building this province together with business, with workers, with First Nations communities, and with the mining industry. Under their watch, the PC should be ashamed of their legacy on mining and critical minerals. But our administration is committed to reestablishing the trust between the province and the local communities that they broke. Let's remind them, and we are going to be moving forward with the Hollow Water First Nations silica sand extraction, protecting 30% of Manitoba's lands and waters by 2030. And let's not forget, we just opened a gold mine.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain on a final supplementary
Provinces
question.
like British Columbia and Ontario have welcomed partnerships with Indigenous peoples and have mineral royalty sharing agreements in place. Why has this NDP government said no to revenue sharing with Indigenous peoples?
The honourable First Minister.
Love it.
Under the PCs, mining stopped in Flin Flon. Under us, a new gold mine. With Alamo. The member opposite doesn't need the money. Tell your leader to return the election rebate. I say through you, the chair.
That's right.
The landfill ads were terrible. If they keep the money, the apology means nothing.
That's right.
I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the new federal cabinet. Prime Minister Mark Carney has appointed a new front bench and some interesting new ministers that our team looks very much forward to working together with to work hard for you, the great people of Manitoba. On a personal level, new Minister Rebecca Chartrand is somebody that we're very excited to see represent our federal interests here in the province of Manitoba. And of course, on a personal level, she is my wife's cousin. So it'll be Minister Chartrand to me, but that personal connection to everybody in Manitoba is a sign of great things to come. Congrats to everybody who's the new Minister of the Crown.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park. Order. The honourable member for Steinbach will come to order. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to begin by acknowledging and saying thank you to our Justice Minister for agreeing to meet with a number of my constituents following question period who have also joined us today in the gallery. As the Minister has been made aware, there is a particular house in Tyndall Park where it appears that crimes and inappropriate activities are frequently occurring. The issue has been referred to Winnipeg Police Services and a file has been opened with the Safer Communities and Neighbourhood Act. Unfortunately, no actions have been taken to date, even with the repeated activity. Will the minister commit to a direct review of this specific property and take a step towards restoring a sense of safety for residents?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I want to really thank the member opposite for bringing this issue to the legislature today, and I want to thank the community for getting engaged and making their community a safer place. As the member opposite noted, the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act is an important tool that we have as a provincial government to help enable communities to watch out for the safety in their own places and to help give them the tools to do the kinds of investigations she's talking about. We do have some updates that I'm glad I'm going to be able to share directly with the residents in the meeting after the House. But I will say, Honourable Speaker, it's all about enabling communities and strengthening the legislation that we have to make our communities safer.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Over the last year, there have been an increase of break-ins and theft in our community. These experiences are costly, and unfortunately, they are leaving people feeling scared, whereas people should feel safe and comfortable in their own communities. Now, Honourable Speaker, with respect to the case that I am talking about, there are photos, there is video footage of many of the incidents, and there are several eyewitnesses of crime leading back to this one particular house. Can the minister explain if there is anything that can be done immediately regarding the occupants of the house where the community has witnessed continuous crime?
The Honourable Minister Justice.
Well, the member opposite has really hit the nail on the head with her approach and the community's approach when it comes to dealing with issues like this. Not only have they engaged, of course, law enforcement and making sure they have the information that they need to do an investigation, but they've also engaged our Public Safety Investigations Unit, our PSIU, who does work on behalf of the province, to do that kind of work to support law enforcement, but to also take steps when there are steps to be taken to directly deal with landlords and with tenants. Now, we're strengthening the Act. We've got Bill 32 before this legislature. We're asking all parties to support this. It's come from community and it's building off the feedback that we've gotten. There's more work to do. We're getting that done here in the legislature, and I hope all parties will support that important work.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, social issues including addictions, mental health, and homelessness continue to rise. It is abundantly clear that we need a holistic approach to dealing with crime. Having said that, there are a few things that we can do immediately. The government announced a 10% increase in the provincial policing budget, yet despite the significant increases, community members have not felt any safer. Will the government commit today to ensuring the public safety strategy will include more police officers in Tyndall Park?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, that's right, Honourable Speaker. 36 new officers that are directly funded by the province of Manitoba are being deployed on the streets right now across the province, across the city, and in fact, that's on top of the already 30% increase in funding that we've given directly to the city of Winnipeg. We're not stopping there. We passed the Unexplained Wealth Act here in the legislature, our Machete Bill. We have our Residential Tenancies Act. We are continuing to build off of the successes that we have. Our government is moving our feet. We know after 7.5 years of underfunding police and cuts, there's a lot of work to do, but we want to work with communities. We want to support the kind of work that the member is bringing forward here, and I just want to thank law enforcement and the community for stepping in.
The honourable member for St. River.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Our government has spent 18 months making good on our commitment to Manitobans to increase access to primary care and ease the burden on our emergency departments. Where the previous failed PC government closed facilities and fired frontline staff, we're going to do the opposite. This week, we're building on the success of 2 extended hours primary care clinics that we've already opened at the Grace and Concordia hospitals by adding another one to South Winnipeg. Can the minister please share with the House the details of our next extended hours primary care clinic and how it will improve health care?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I want to thank my dear colleague for that great question. I am so excited to announce that we are opening another extended hours primary care clinic at the Victoria General Hospital. Wow. Families are benefiting from having access access to primary care on weekends and after hours. Now families in South Winnipeg will have access to the same benefits in their own community. The new clinic will officially open this Thursday, May 15th. It'll be open from 5:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. on weekdays and 1:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. on weekends and statutory holidays. So yes, that means that this long weekend, Manitobans will have another option for primary care after hours. You can book same-day appointments using medinav.ca, and there's going to be a limited
Time
space
has
for
expired. The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Honourable Speaker, throughout Manitoba, police resources are disproportionately going to mental health calls. We've heard from the Altona Police Chief that they need help with these calls. What is the minister doing right now to help rural Manitoba police?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. And I've stated in this House before, we are hiring 100 mental health workers to work alongside policing, something that members opposite didn't do. Police were knocking on the members opposite's door while they fired 55 police officers. Shame on that previous failed, callous government. We'll not take that approach. We're working with police officers. We're listening to them. We'll continue to take their lead and support them in the work that they do. We want to lift them up for the work that they do each and every day, supporting Manitobans here in our province. Thank you for your work.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, last week I asked the minister about access to mental health resources in rural Manitoba and got no real answer. What is this minister going to do to ensure that mental health supports are there to help emergency workers are available in rural communities?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Well, on this side of the House, we're continuing to put supports into the system, as well as supporting police officers. We're hiring psychologists, psychiatrists. On members opposite side, when they were in government, they were firing those very workers. We will take no lessons from members opposite who decimated our healthcare system. We have an amazing healthcare worker, we have our amazing healthcare minister, as well as an amazing justice minister. We are working collaboratively across departments to ensure that the supports are getting out there onto the front lines to those Manitobans that sent us here, that sent those members opposite packing. That's why they're on that side of the House. They never listens to Manitobans. We're listening. We're getting you the support.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Morden Winkler on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Paramedics, firefighters, police officers, and many other frontline office staff are facing unthinkable situations every day and need to know that when they need resources, they are available. When will this minister prioritize mental health across rural Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
For 7.5 years, the failed PC, callous government did not prioritize mental health, did not take a harm reduction approach, did not take an enforcement approach, and certainly didn't take an evidence-based approach in this province. They did not listen to police officers. They did not listen to healthcare providers. They closed emergency rooms. They cut policing. We'll not take that approach. We're listening to police officers. We're listening to Manitobans. We're going to get them the supports that they need because we care. We're a caring government. We're going to continue to support you. We're going to continue to get you the supports you need. We are not going to take the approach that members opposite took, and we'll continue to support Manitobans. That's what you sent us here to do, and that's what we're doing.
The honourable member for Roblin.
Honourable Speaker, I recently heard from a concerned Manitoba senior. He's on a fixed income, and yet this NDP Minister of Health has hiked his pharmacare deductible by over 10% this year. And now he's faced with a choice. He can pay for the NDP's property tax hike, or he can pay for his medications. So which would the minister prefer? Should this senior on a fixed income in the middle of an affordability crisis pay for his pharmacare deductible or pay his property taxes?
Order. Order. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, the member opposite is wrong. Just simply wrong. And that's what she does. She stands up in this House, and instead of bringing issues to my office where we could have already followed up with that senior, given him the answers, worked with him and supported him, which is what our office does for Manitobans every day, she brings it to the floor of this House, and she's simply wrong. Yep. Honourable Speaker, I look forward to learning about that constituent and helping him and making sure that he has the full information that he needs. But I also want to say, Honourable Speaker, that our government has made huge strides, but not enough strides. 7.5 years of cuts to health care and a callous approach takes time to fix. But we're committed to doing that work for Manitobans because they deserve a government that cares about health care, respects health care workers, and takes a compassionate approach. They finally have that. They didn't have it for 7.5 years.
Member's time has expired. And the time for question period has also expired. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
On a point of order, please.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader on a point of order.
Yes, I would like to make a point of order. I would like to ask for the Premier to stand in his place and apologize for the comments that he put on the record about a member on this side of the House suggesting that he was frothing at the mouth. This is, firstly, obviously false. Secondly, it's inflammatory.
Order.
Third, it's disrespectful, much like the heckling across right now, but I'm trying to bring a point of order forward about heckling what is happening in this very building. It's disrespectful, disparaging, insulting, and finally, it's intimidation. So I would ask that the Premier apologize for his comments that he's put on the record. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader on the same point of order.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Premier won't be doing anything of the sort, but it does allow me to respond to the member's opposite point of order in respect of things that occur in this chamber day in and day out. I'm going to start with what happened yesterday during QP when the member for Fort White winked at the Deputy Premier and our Health Minister.
Order.
And when that was brought up to the member for Fort White, I watched him and heard him say, in response to winking to a member of this chamber, to the Deputy Premier, the member for Fort White said, and I quote, "You wish." First off, let me be clear, nobody wishes that. And secondly, I think that that is a quintessential example of what we see from the men opposite day in and day out, leveled towards the women and gender diverse folks in our caucus and in our cabinet. I will point out that the member for Lac-Debonny routinely gets up in the House and in committee and misgenders members of this Legislative Assembly. And instead of just saying, "I'm sorry," makes a huge temper tantrum and makes it even doubles down on what he's doing. Several members opposite routinely get up, the member for Portage, many of them, I don't know their things, get up and talk about the Minister for Education and say the Minister of Education doesn't know how to do her job, doesn't know her portfolio. They routinely get up and, for the member of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness, routinely tell her that she doesn't know how to do her job and that she doesn't know her portfolio. And let me educate the Minister. Every single day, the men on that side, and while the women roll their eyes, I would encourage them to get their men on side in respect of dealing with the misogyny so clearly evident in their caucus that we experience day in and day out in this chamber. So while the member opposite wants to bring up a point of order for one of the poor little men on the opposite side, who I'll remind members opposite sexually harassed his constituency assistant out of a job, to which he's never apologized, and is still sitting in this chamber, which I don't understand how he's still sitting in this chamber. I would ask the members opposite, one, to stop with their misogyny, stop with their mansplaining of how we are to do our jobs. Trust me, we know our jobs 10 times more than you ever did and ever will. So thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Order, please. So first off, I'd like to point out that the language in question is not unparliamentary. It is not pleasant language, and we've seen that all too often in this chamber. Several times in the last little while, we've seen it. But as importantly as the language we use in this place are the way we treat each other, whether it's words, whether it's actions, it's understanding where people have come from to get here. And look at us. We've all gotten to this place on a different path. We need to learn to respect how people got here. We need to learn to respect that people got here. We need to learn to respect what we're here for. We are here to debate, to talk about ideas, to talk about how to make things better in this province. All of us need to stop and look inward and say, how are we acting? How are we reacting in this chamber, in this space where we need to be setting an example? And we're doing that right now. But it's certainly not the example that we should be setting. It's not the example that we should be setting for our kids, for people that are watching. And trust me, people are watching, and we are hearing from people that they're shocked and aghast at the way we treat each other in this place. That needs to stop. And one way or another, as your speaker, I have to find a way to make it stop. I can't make you like each other, but I will make you respect the positions that each and every one of us hold in this chamber. And if I find you're not, somebody's not going to like the consequences of that. And the Speaker has tools to make sure that those members that don't grasp the concept of respect for each other come to understand consequences. So in this case, the honourable member does not have a point of order. So now we will move on to petitions. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. The background to this petition is as follows. On May 1st, 2022, Jordan Reimer, 24 years of age, was...
Order, please. If I could ask all members to take their conversations to the loge or out in the hall so that I can hear the member that's speaking, I'd appreciate that. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Number one, on May 1st, 2022, Jordan Reimer, 24 years of age, was killed by an impaired driver while she was acting as a designated driver. Number two, there are two people legally culpable for her death: the impaired driver and the accomplice. The driver was charged, but the second criminal, the accomplice, has not been held accountable. Number 3, a concerned citizen took the keys from the impaired driver earlier in the evening to ensure he could not drive impaired. The accomplice retrieved the keys from this citizen under false pretenses and knowingly provided the impaired driver with access to the vehicle. Number 4, the Winnipeg Police Services, WPS, investigation provided adequate evidence to meet the charging standard and recommended charges be laid against the accomplice. The Crown prosecutors declined to prosecute the accomplice. Number 5, the family of Jordan Reimer has called for the prosecution of the accomplice and that the decision to not prosecute be reviewed independently. Number 6, as recently as 2022, there is precedent to refer criminal files on decisions to not prosecute with prosecution to extra-provincial departments of justice for review. This was done with the Peter Nygaard file, which ultimately led to a reversal in the decision to not prosecute, and charges were laid. Number 7, an out-of-province review is supported by MAD Canada, MAD Manitoba, and by Manitobans. Number 8, the family has exhausted every avenue within the existing system, and in the absence of a prescribed process where a disagreement exists on charging standards, the only option is to request an independent out-of-province review. Number 9, in December 2024, the WPS reported an alarming number of impaired drivers in the holiday check stop program, extending criminal culpability beyond the driver to those who engage in overt actions to facilitate impaired driving will save lives. Number 10, Manitobans deserve to have confidence in the provincial government and justice systems to make decisions that achieve true justice for victims and their families. We petition the Legislative Assembly as follows: to urge the provincial government to order an out-of-province review of the prosecutor's decision to not prosecute the accomplice in the death of Jordan Reimer. And Honourable Speaker, this petition was signed by Larson Nelson, Kim Scott, Kevin Nelson, and many, many other fine Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Steinbach.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the following petition. The background to this petition is as follows. One, Kelly Verway, a beloved young woman from Portage la Prairie, Manitoba, was tragically killed in a car crash caused by a repeat violent offender with a long criminal history. 2, despite repeated violations of his bail conditions, the offender was free to roam the streets and to ultimately claim Kelly's life. This tragedy was entirely preventable. 3, while the criminal code falls under the federal jurisdiction, provinces have been given the responsibility for the administration of justice, allowing for meaningful provincial action on bail reform to ensure public safety. 4, other provinces have taken proactive steps to strengthen bail enforcement, but Manitoba has not used all the available tools to address this effectively. 5, the provincial government has the ability and the responsibility to advocate for and implement measures that protect its citizens by ensuring that repeat violent offenders are not released into our communities without proper safeguards. 6, immediate action is required to close gaps in the justice system that allow dangerous criminals to remain free, which puts innocent Manitobans at risk. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows. 1, to urge the provincial government to take immediate and decisive action on bail reform to address serious deficits in enforcement by utilizing all available provincial mechanisms to strengthen warrant enforcement, increasing bail supervision, and opposing release of offenders, thus ensuring that repeat violent offenders are held accountable and that public safety is prioritized over leniency. And 2, to urge the provincial government to lobby the federal government to immediately repeal provisions of the criminal code that allow for the continued victimization of law-abiding Manitobans while granting repeat offenders additional rights. And Honourable Speaker, this petition is signed by Colin Hoare, Tyler Robinson, Wayne Johnson, and many other Manitobans.
No further petitions, grievances, orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Can you please resolve the House into Committee of Supply for the consideration of departmental estimates?
The House will now resolve into Committee of Supply. Will the Deputy Chair please take the chair?
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Housing, Addictions, and Homelessness. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber. Could the minister introduce her staff in attendance? The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions, and Homelessness.
Miigwech. So to my left here, we have our amazing Deputy Minister, Charlene Paquin. Directly in front of me, we have our Director of Ministerial Affairs, Carolina Stetcher. And then to my left, our amazing ADM of Housing, Carolyn Ryan.
Thank you for that. Would the critic like to introduce her staff in attendance? The Honourable Member of Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Yes, I would like to introduce Mark Stewart as he is the Director of Issues Management, and he's originally from my area of southern Manitoba, a little community called Manitou. So I'm happy to have you here today with me, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you for that. As per sub-rule 77 bracket 15, questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. As the Progressive Conservative Opposition Critic for Mental Health, it's my role to hold government accountable and ensure that mental health, addictions, and housing supports remains a priority for our provinces, the people of our province, and to make sure that the province's policies and spending decisions are done accordingly to those that need those services. I work closely with frontline workers, community leaders, and families to understand the real world challenges people are facing across Manitoba, from urban centers to rural and northern communities. My job is to listen, to advocate, and to push for improvements in access, quality, and support for services. That means scrutinizing the government's decisions, questioning gaps in care, and bringing forward the voices of those who are often overlooked. It also means working across party lines when needed, because mental health, addictions, and homelessness should never be a partisan issue. We all should have the same goal. I bring concerns to the legislature, propose solutions, and challenge the government to do better, whether it's ensuring timely access to care, advocating for increased funding for programs, expanding community-based supports, addressing youth and Indigenous mental health needs, or supporting the well-being of those working in the front lines in addictions. All of these are so important, and it's my position as the critic to make sure that I take my job seriously, and I do that, Deputy Speaker. Ultimately, my goal is to help build a system that's more responsive, more equitable, and more compassionate for all Manitobans. I will continue to ask important questions because Manitobans want to know information from this minister. And I would ask that the minister would take time to answer my questions, and I'm looking forward to having a good back and forth today as we sit and we talk about the different the portfolios that her and I both work together. So my first question would be for the minister in regards to access to RAM clinics in Winnipeg. Can the minister please tell me what is the current waiting time for access to a RAM clinic in Winnipeg?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Chairperson. I thank the member for that question. So I just want to highlight that we have increased our addictions and mental health budget by $8 million this year, which is a historic investment. And, you know, this is a priority for our department, a priority for our government, which is why this department was created. We know that folks are experiencing mental health addictions and need stability in housing, which is why we launched Your Way Home, which is why we're working across departments and working with service delivery organizations. We've heard from folks who are experiencing whether it's substance use disorders or mental health issues, or whether they need stable housing. And we've been listening and certainly have come to the table and come with a plan and been supporting them. So to the member's question, there's been a 90% decrease in the number of patients that have been turned away due to capacity issues from April 2024 to March 2025. And I just want to uplift and really, you know, honor and just, I can't say how much, you know, we appreciate the work that these folks are doing on the front lines, the heavy lifting that they're doing each and every day to support our relatives who, you know, need these supports. We opened up the first ever Indigenous-led RAM clinic. We've increased their funding by $1.4 million this year to increase capacity, because we know that there's more folks that need the support. We also invested in the digital RAM front door, which supports folks no matter where they're at in the province. They can get support, RAM support. And we're continuing to put services into the system. For far too long, the previous failed government didn't invest enough to meet the demand that we've seen from folks, whether it was folks in encampments, whether it was folks in shelters, whether it was folks that were experiencing addictions in their homes, you know, isolated during the pandemic without supports, whether it was the stigmatism that we see coming from members across the way when they talk about this crack commando committee that is supporting and helping, you know, folks in Swan River, helping to support, you know, folks to, whether it's stopping the spread of STBBIs, or whether it's to ensure that people are staying alive in that region. But these are folks that are doing heart work. They're doing some heavy lifting, and for members opposite to, you know, continue to stigmatize folks who are, you know, suffering and need support and need a government that is going to really come from a non-judgmental place and offer that support, and really come from a place that is saying to them that there is hope, that we believe in you, that we are going to provide this support regardless of where you're at in your journey, whether you are a user and you're ready to go to treatment or not. We're going to support you in that journey, which is why we're listening to the experts who have told us that we need to open up a supervised consumption site in this province. And this supervised consumption site will have a RAM clinic in this supervised consumption site. It will have primary health care. It will have mental health workers. It will have housing first workers who can stabilize folks. And certainly there will be paths for folks to get into treatment from the supervised consumption site. So when members opposite are talking about, you know, treatment and recovery, absolutely we need that, but we need a balanced approach. We have to keep people alive in order to get them the supports that they need. And, you know, RAM Clinic is one part of it, but also supporting and meeting people where they're at and taking a non-judgmental approach and providing the supports is our government's responsibility, and that's exactly what on this side of the House we're doing.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. That wasn't really the question that I had asked about. I had asked about wait time lengths and just our province addiction services are woefully inadequate. Manitoba has seen a dramatic rise in substance use disorders, yet access to treatment remains limited and almost non-existent in some areas of the province. While jurisdictions across Canada have expanded detox centers and recovery programs, Manitoba lags behind. This is a problem. This is something we need to realize that we need to get on board here and start giving people the services for treatment and recovery. We need to we need approaches that you have little approaches that do little address the root causes of addiction with the mental health side of it. Individuals seeking help often face month-long wait times, can't wait, which can be the difference between recovery and tragedy. The government's failure to expand accessible evidence-based treatment options is costing lives. And this is tragic for me. And yeah, we have frontline workers that are reaching out and telling me that they need more support in addiction treatment and recovery facilities such as RAM clinics and other organizations too. And it's unfortunate that that we're not spending, or the government's not spending money on those, but just on the drug injection site. And it's difficult to say when the minister says balance $8 million, and 6 of that is going to a site for a drug site, and then we have another 1.5 million that's going to actual recovery and treatment. So she brought up the amount of dollars, and that's disappointing because we need, like she said, we need balance, and I don't think that's balance. So I'm going to ask the question, specifically, how many beds have been opened in RAM clinics or other treatment beds, specifically in medical health care facilities? Any treatment beds other than the Indigenous-led RAM clinic that the PCs had already gotten started, that she cut the ribbon on? I'm just wondering, like, what has the minister done to increase beds for mental health and for addictions, specifically addictions? Sorry.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Chairperson. And again, I just want to reiterate what the opposition leaders committed to, and that's language. And language does matter. And again, stigmatizing folks who are in their substance use disorder. This is a health issue. You know, this is, you're making a judgment against folks, and not everyone that is, you know, struggling with the substance use is, and, you know, struggling using injection drugs. So when that member continues to use this rhetoric, drug injection site, it's really stigmatizing to folks that are struggling in our province, and you know, that member should apologize to those folks. That member heard yesterday clearly that their leader has committed to using the proper language, which experts have used and have said it's a supervised consumption site. These folks that come there are being supervised to use their drug of choice so that their lives are saved. You know, whether that's inhalants or injection, there's many different modalities. It's not just injection. So I want to correct the member on that, and I would hope that that member would use the proper language and not make these judgments about, because when you use rhetoric like that, it's really demeaning to those folks, and it's hurtful, quite frankly. And it makes a judgment towards those folks that are experiencing this. And we as, the government, as an MLA, and I'm sure there's folks in your constituency that are experiencing this, that need the support, that need your support, that would appreciate you not using that type of language.
I'll invite the minister to direct comments to the chair.
Yes, sorry, Chair.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
So through the chair, I would ask, the member across the way to, apologize, use the proper language as their leader had committed to, which is supervised consumption site. These are folks that are, Manitobans, they're our relatives, they deserve the respect of our government, and they need to be treated with the respect that any other Manitoban would want to be treated with. We have the responsibility to provide the supports that we've come here to commit to, and we came into government with a $2 billion deficit. We came into government for 7.5 years from a previous government who didn't take a harm reduction approach. That, has left us playing catch up, quite frankly. And since we've come into government, we've done nothing but put services into the system. We worked with service providers, we've listened to them, we've created a strategy, Your Way Home, to meet people where they're at, to support people right in their homes. We visited Houston, we've learned about their strategy in terms of helping to end homelessness, but we've also taken what best practices have been in Manitoba to support Manitobans. And frankly, service providers have told us that best practices are to support these folks in their homes with their mental health and addictions. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we are meeting people where they're at, providing them the supports right in their very homes, right in the places where, members opposite were selling under their feet and creating homelessness, right in the very places where they were boarding up. We're not going to take that approach. We're going to continue to support, stabilize, provide the wraparound supports that these folks need. We're going to continue to work collaboratively with whether it's municipalities, whether it's mayors and reeves, whether it's with city councillors. We're working with everyone because it's for the betterment of our province. It's for the betterment of our citizens here of Manitoba. And we want to ensure that everyone's doing well, because we're not doing well unless everyone's doing well. And, Manitobans have stepped up and they said, no longer do we want to continue the way that we were doing under the former government. We want to provide the supports that Manitobans deserve, and we're going to continue to do that.
The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. It's time for this government to move beyond empty rhetoric and take meaningful, measurable action. The people of Manitoba deserve better than this, than Band-Aid solutions, underfunded programs, and political posturing. I'm disappointed. I'm here to talk and discuss treatment and recovery for people in our province who desperately want it and need it, for parents and mothers who desperately need it for their children. And they deserve some answers from the minister in charge of this portfolio. My question would be, again, I'm going to repeat the same question I just asked. How many treatment beds have been opened up in RAM clinics in the last, since this government has been in power in Winnipeg?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. And I just want to let the member know that $67 million is being invested into addiction services. We are continuing to put services into the system. So our total operating expenditure budget is $733,965,000. That's an increase of $57,691,000. That's an 8.5% increase overall. When, you know, the former cold, callous PC government was in government, they were cutting, slashing, selling. You know, they weren't investing in social, affordable, harm reduction, mental health programs to support those who are struggling. So, you know, for members opposite to now come to the table and say, oh, what are you doing to support these folks? Well, $67 million is what we are doing. We are continuing to put services into the system. You know, so I'll ask the members opposite through the chair, you know, when that member was at the consultation, and again, you know, when they were in government, they had the opportunity to support and meet people where they're at. They had the opportunity to open up a supervised consumption site, which would have saved Manitobans' lives. Mothers were in this building begging the PCs at the time to open up a supervised consumption site. I remember Mom Stop the Harm coming to this building and begging the former PC government to do something about addictions, to take a harm reduction approach, to support a supervised consumption site. I remember experts, you know, giving a report to, you know, the former premier at the time, Pallister, who was very cold and, you know, had this mentality of, you know, just pick up your bootstraps. And I think that, you know, this, you know, members opposite have not changed their tune on this, that they think that people can just, you know, can go to treatment. Not everybody's at that place. Some people need to meet someone, develop a relationship, to have someone to build trusting relationships with, and then, you know, have hope and walk alongside them, and then they'll go to treatment and recovery. And that's exactly the type of system that we're trying to build. A supervised consumption site could have been built in this province years ago. Did the former government, you know, even take steps? Did they even listen to the experts? There was no movement on that. Instead, they threw a report on the floor. Shame on them. You know, so I think that, you know, members opposite haven't moved anywhere on that, because they still seem to toe the line of supervised consumption sites are enabling. They're not, people should just be able to pull their bootstraps up and meet and go to treatment. Not everybody's there. And what I will say to the members opposite is we are investing $67 million. We have reduced the capacity by 90% in RAM clinics. We have invested $1.4 million more. We have opened up the digital front door for RAM so that people can get the supports where they need anywhere in the province. We've hired more psychiatrists and psychologists. We've invested $1 million into provincial drug checking machines. We've $1 million for expanded stabilization and withdrawal management options. And the $1.5 million that the member across the way is referring to for the Ann Oak Recovery Center, that is above and beyond the $733.965 million that we are investing. The Minister for Families is investing $1 million from the Miniwea strategy, which is the empowerment to help end gender-based violence in this province. And, you know, I would encourage members opposite to, you know, get on board and support and, instead of coming from this place of divisiveness.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I've asked the same question 3 times, and the minister doesn't, I think, know the answer to let me know how many currently how many new beds they've opened up for treatment in the last year and a half since they've been in government. Perhaps the minister can tell me how many they anticipate opening up in the next fiscal year. What is her goal?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
And again, what I will say to that member is Your Way Home is a strategy that supports and meets people where they're at. Something that the members opposite, we're okay with walking outside this building each and every day. I remember leaving here. There's 2 bus stops, one on Broadway and one on, I don't know if it turns into Osborne or it's still Memorial, but those 2 bus stops, those bus shelters, there were people living in there. They had mattresses in there, they were putting up blankets, they were making homes in those bus shelters. And I remember being on the opposite side and, asking, when is this government going to be coming up with a strategy, providing housing, supporting these folks? When are they going to ever support folks who are unhoused, that need mental health, addiction supports? Did that ever happen under that failed, cold, callous PC government? Never happened. They were okay with leaving people living in bus shelters. They even, sold off 185 Smith, hundreds of housing that left people homeless, that put people deeper into addictions. So when that member is talking about how many services are we putting into the system, I would suggest that that member reads Your Way Home strategy, because we are housing people. We've housed over 1,000 people already. That's getting people into homes with supports. We're taking 20% of our Manitoba housing and making that a housing first approach, which is providing mental health and addiction supports, wraparound supports. And I don't think the member knows exactly what that means. I actually wanted to let the member know what a RAM clinic is, because I'm not sure if the member knows what a RAM clinic is. So there's currently 7 RAM clinics in Manitoba, and 3 are in Winnipeg, and 1 in Selkirk, 1 in Brandon, 1 in Thompson, and 1 in Portage la Prairie. And there's also virtual services, as I let the member know. It's nurse-led, and the hours of operation vary depending on location. And across the province, there's between 122 to 151 clients that walk in or drop in each week. When RAM Clinic, we heard from people, that there was more services that were needed. So we opened up more services at the Aboriginal Health and Wellness RAM Clinic. $1.4 million more. We opened up the digital front door so that we can get more services there. So they're walk-in clinics that are appropriate for people wanting help for high-risk substance use and addictions without an appointment or formal referral. RAM clinics are not for people needing urgent medical attention for either physical or mental health symptoms. They're more urgent needs these can be met at emergency or urgent care departments or the crisis response, depending on the situation. So these are for addictions related. And in 2020, the RAM Clinic was, there was a mandate that led a collaborative provincial action to help improve timely access. Well, we went beyond that. We opened up an Indigenous-led because we heard from the community. We've continued to work with the Aboriginal Health and Wellness, who have told us that, there's a great need for Indigenous people to access these services. In 23, 24, 25 fiscal year, RAM Hub strategic plan focused on a number of initiatives and actions with 4 key strategic priorities with particular focus on the unique challenges faced by Indigenous people. So 1, to increase patient outflow from RAM clinics to primary care. So if you go to the Indigenous RAM clinic, you'll notice that there is a primary health care clinic right beside. So when we open up the supervised consumption site, it will have the RAM clinic and it'll also have primary health care. 2, increase access to RAM clinics and provide services closer to home. We are doing that with Your Way Home, providing those services in homes. Also, the digital RAM front door is doing just that, meeting people where they're at, providing those services right in their homes, and I'll continue those next 2 in my next answer.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Again, my question was about how many spaces is she hoping to open up for treatment and recovery for those in addiction crisis situations right now, and there was no answer for that. I would personally hope that there's a goal for the minister to want to do more specifically for those. And for the rapid access addictions medication clinics, I think they're important, and I know that that's something that there's so many that are being helped so much by those spaces and those clinics, and it's amazing that we have so many people and so many healthcare providers in those clinics that are putting themselves aside and putting their lives on hold because they're there every single day, giving it their all, and I just appreciate that so much, that the stuff that they do. They're our true heroes for putting themselves there, or for making that their life's goal to help those who need help with their addiction recovery walk and journey. It's such an important thing, and I just want to say thank you to every single frontline worker. There's no question at all that I am so thankful for those who helped people in my life with their addiction crisis, and those that are helping all the mothers and daughters and sons and fathers out there that are struggling with addiction. It's just something, as family members, we cannot ever repay, being able to have our family member back with us and that they are living happy, whole lives free of addiction. And it's such an important thing. So again, I just want to really reiterate that the minister couldn't give me a goal that she has of increased beds for treatment and recovery. And I just want to ask her again, the minister again, if she, what exactly would her vision be for treatment and recovery specifically with the RAM clinics? If there's extended hours, is something that they could be doing, or what is it that she would like to see with those RAM clinics to make it even more accessible and take those wait times down that are far too long right now for our loved ones?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
And again, I'll reiterate, under our government, the wait times have decreased by 90%. That is a significant number. That is because of the investments that our government has made since taking government. And, I'm not sure why the members opposite, is not happy with a 90% decrease in wait times at RAM clinics. That's something to be celebrated. 90% decrease in folks, getting the supports that they need. $67 million being invested into addiction services. That is an incredible amount of money. And again, I just want to correct members opposite. It's RAM addictions medicine clinics. Rapid access addictions medicine clinics, yes. So we're investing an additional $2.878 million to support additional psychologists and psychiatrists in the healthcare system, as well as an expansion of the extension of the community health care outcomes, so the ECHO program. So that meets people where they're at. That supports people living in the community, whether it's with their addictions or health or mental health. It adds, it's a wellness team, and it's, again, meeting people closer to home. And this is in addition to the $2.215 million for the increased psychiatric wages that we increased. Under the former government, there were no increases. And we're meeting and supporting these folks. We also, the department's budget 25-26 commits to funding a range of addiction services. And I had told you $1 million for drug tracking. And that's significant. This is, folks can come in, test their drugs before they use them. There's folks there to, give them the information. We went down to several different supervised consumption sites, whether that was in Vancouver, and I would, encourage members opposite to actually go and visit a supervised consumption site, to actually go and visit and talk to folks, whether it's Calgary, whose supervised consumption site is in an urgent care center, where, all the supports are provided in there, primary health care, social workers, housing first teams. And they stood up their supervised consumption site pretty quickly. They put it in a mobile site in their parking lot in the beginning until they were able to get it up and running in their urgent care center. But I would encourage members opposite, instead of, the previous failed mental health and wellness minister, to actually go inside and speak to those folks who many of those have lived experience, that are giving these folks hope to see that they can do it too, that they can change their lives around, that they can, have the support of someone who's caring, compassionate, non-judgmental, to say that I've come through it, and that, with the support of others, that you can get through your addiction. So I'd encourage that member opposite, through the chair, to visit a supervised consumption site, whether that's in Victoria, who also, primary health care, provides stabilized housing. And again, $67 million towards addiction services. That's not a drop in the bucket. That's a huge amount of money. And we're going to continue to, ramp up services. We're continuing to listen to and work towards the expansion of detox beds and other treatment options to ensure Manitobans have the support that they need. And again, 90% decrease in the number of patients turned away at RAM clinics. So I would hope that members opposite would, celebrate that number along with, us, because that's not insignificant. And that is a huge, number to be celebrated. That's 90% more folks getting the supports that they need.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Just wanted to say that the Indigenous rapid access to addictions medication clinics were first funded by the government, the PC government, in January of 2023. Sarah Guillard, just a little call out to her, was the Minister of Mental Health and Community Wellness, is the one who started these clinics, and thanks to her work that she did in championing these clinics, so many people are receiving treatment and are in recovery. So thank you to Sarah for that. I think it's important for us to celebrate those that have gone before us, and to strive to do what I can in this role to be more like her. So one of my questions would be, apparently the minister voted against this initiative in 2023, and I'm just wondering, as she sits here and talks about how all the different things that they're doing to move forward, and we should be learning from others around us. I have been to drug injection site. I've toured some, and I just want to ask or just mention that there's many locations across the country that are closing them down right now, and I'm just wondering, like, if there's, like, why is that happening? You know, it'd be great if we could, you know, take and learn from others around us as what has worked and what hasn't worked. But they're closing them down in Ontario. They're closing them down. They've closed them down in Saskatchewan for a period of time because their mental health staff don't have the support and couldn't continue to work there. And those are all things we need to learn from and do better at. I think that it's a benefit for us to be able to do a better job because we can take what's happened in other areas and learn from them, and I think that's really important. I'd like to ask the minister to table the month-by-month waitlist data for me.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Chairman, I almost called you Speaker. You're not in the Speaker's chair right now. So I just want to reiterate, language is important. Members opposite still is using, drug injection sites. These aren't just drug injection sites. These are supervised consumption sites. These are where people go to get supervised while they're doing their drug of choice. There is toxic drugs out there, and we need to ensure that people are supervised so that their lives are saved. They're not simply going there to inject drugs. They're going there to get the support and resources that they so desperately need for so long. And as I said so many times, and I don't know, members not listening across the way, she strives to be, like her predecessor, former failed minister, Sarah Guimard, who didn't take a harm reduction approach, who in fact went to BC, went to an Insight, one of the supervised consumption sites, said that they went and toured the site when in fact took pictures outside, walked around, never talked to one single person, and was called out by the media on that. Like, how demeaning is that? How can someone go and take pictures of someone who is struggling in their substance use disorder and say that they went into this supervised consumption site and say that these don't work, that look what's happening here? Like, without even going in and seeing what is actually happening inside, without even talking to the very people who are operating this service inside, without even talking to the people who are struggling with their substance use, but going there and actually looking down on these people as if they should be pitied, as if they should just pull up their bootstraps and figure it out and get yourself into treatment because that's the only option, when it's in fact not the only option. Experts tell us, and members opposite said it in their opening statement, that we need to take an expert approach, and that's exactly what we're doing on this side. We're listening to experts. We're taking the approach that the experts have told us, what Manitobans have told us. They sent us here with a mandate to end chronic homelessness with the wraparound supports, getting people to, whether it's mental health, whether it's addictions, whether it's stabilized housing, whether it's, to someone that they can trust and someone who believes in them, someone who will give them hope. And certainly the cold, callous former PC government did not do that. And Manitobans certainly sent them packing with their cold, callous approach because they no longer believed in that approach. They wanted to see Manitobans out of tents. They wanted to see Manitobans out of bus shelters. They wanted to see Manitobans off the street and into a safe place to safely, in a supervised way, consume their drug of choice, to get connected to the supports that they need. We take a four-pillared approach on this side because the experts have told us that it needs to be a four-pillared approach, which is a harm reduction approach. Members opposite never took, so that we can lead them and help support them to a path of recovery. Our Justice Minister is doing an amazing job at enforcement and putting more supports into place so that we can get those toxic drugs off the street. And we are investing in a universal nutrition program so that we can make sure that kids are getting to school and getting educated. Something that members opposite never did. And we'll continue to do the work and get services in.
The Honourable Member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I'm just trying to figure out which direction to go because I'm trying to get information. That's what this is supposed to be about, learning more about our addictions and our situation that's happening in our province right now, because it's a crisis. And I'm going to say it, I'm disappointed that we can't get more information, because it should be something that is incredibly serious right now. And we should be talking about it. We should be talking about solutions every day, because we have people that are dying of addiction or of overdoses every day, and we need to do whatever we can. And we need to have a balanced approach. We need to have treatment and recovery available, and it's just not something that's a priority. It's disappointing for me, and I really just want that to put that out there, that it's such an important thing that we need to give attention to. One of my questions would be, we have several RAM clinics in Winnipeg, and then we've also got them in different areas of the province as well. And that was well strategically done, and I appreciate that the former government put them in different communities as well around the province, so that all of the addiction treatment isn't just in one space, and that it's accessible to people around the province of Manitoba. But one question I would like to know and ask the minister specifically, there's two different, there's the River Point Centre in Winnipeg, and there's also the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre. They both run RAM clinics. Can the minister specifically tell me what kind of reporting system, or how does let's say the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre report to the department, the minister, specifically what numbers of the data of how many people are coming in to actually get treatment and recovery per month and how they're keeping track of what they're doing to help people at the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre specifically.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Chairperson. So reporting is, so we are the funder, just to be clear, and then reporting is the reporting is done through shared health. And I just want to understand a little more clarity from members opposite question. So members opposite was asking, what is the difference between reporting from Riverview versus Aboriginal Health and Wellness? They're both the same reporting structure, and they report to shared health. We are the funder of the program. Did I say Riverview? Riverwood.
The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I was just wondering, like, just in regards to the two Winnipeg, I didn't mean to say in regard, like, between the two. I just mean, like, specifically Aboriginal Health and Wellness, what would be the reporting for that specific RAM clinic? What would be the process of reporting for that one specifically? That's what I was meaning, sorry.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech. So just to be clear that all of the RAM clinics report the same, regardless of what RAM clinic it is. They all report to shared health. And again, we fund the RAM clinics. And again, I can't reiterate enough that 90%, there's a 90% reduction in the number of patients being turned away due to capacity issues. And I just want to remind the member that under their former failed government that OD deaths increased by 3 times from 1999, or from 199 in 2019 to 568 in 2023. We invested in drug checking machines to ensure that folks can get their drugs tested, but we've also heard from Manitobans that they wanted to ensure that Manitobans had a place to go to get connected to services, which is why we are working on getting the first supervised consumption site stood up here in our province. We've been working on consultations, listening to Manitobans, and hearing from folks. And again, it's about connecting people to services, helping them build a relationship so that they have the confidence that they can get into treatment and they do have, someone who will believe in them. And the supervised consumption site will have primary health care, a RAM clinic. When members opposite was in government and, the leader of the opposition was in cabinet, they could have made the decision. They could have pushed for their leader at the time to open up a supervised consumption site. But the member for Fort White, didn't push for that. Instead, they stood by and allowed 568 people to succumb to overdoses in 2023. They can't run from that record. We're taking a harm reduction approach. We're meeting people where they're at. And members opposite, they say that they want to, be like the former Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. So through the chair, I would ask the member opposite if they support a supervised consumption site, if they support a balanced approach, and if they would ask that, or if they would answer that member, that question that was asked at the consultation, the community consultation, that wasn't held by government, that wasn't held by, it was held by community. There was a question raised at that consultation. How can someone go to a treatment facility if they're dead? A supervised consumption site is there to support, meet people where they're at, and lead them to treatment and recovery. So again, I have two questions through the chair. Does that member opposite support a harm reduction approach through supervised consumption site, which would lead people to treatment and recovery? And how can you lead people to treatment and recovery if they're not alive?
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Or Deputy Chair, I have so many questions in that preamble that I just heard, and one of them is I'm just wondering where the 90% number comes from, because I've been speaking with mothers who have daughters who are waiting for treatment, and they're waiting for 3 to 6 months for a space. I'm talking to people that are working on the front lines in RAM clinics and saying they're turning people away, and they're in tears because they can't help them. So my question would be, again, and I've asked this question over and over and over again, and I don't get an answer from the minister, is how long is the wait list for these RAM clinics or for treatment beds, and how many people were turned away? We need to know some answers, and I want some numbers for those questions. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Again, the rapid access to addictions medicine clinics are walk-in clinics. They're not clinics where you walk into and you get into a bed. I don't think members opposite understand what a RAM clinic is. So I would encourage the member to go and visit a RAM clinic, to sit with the RAM doctors, with the folks who are on the front lines, supporting folks as they are coming into the RAM clinics. When I was on the opposite side in opposition, I was meeting with mothers, with folks who were deeply in need of supports. When we got into government, we formed a department because this was a priority for us. The addictions, homelessness, mental health, and housing department has taken, this addictions crisis seriously. It's a priority for us. It's something that is deeply close to my heart. I've worked with so many mothers, so many family members. I'm a family member that has lost someone, and it's not something that any of us take lightly. So when I say there's a 90% reduction or decrease in the amount of people that are being turned away at RAM clinics, these are people that are going in to see someone the day of to get the supports. And I know the member opposite was trying to educate me on what, the OAT is, and, those folks that go to RAM clinics often will get administered rapid access to addictions medicine. Doctors will often refer people or administer OAT prescriptions to folks to help them with their addictions. And, these are folks that are on the front lines each and every day supporting our most vulnerable folks who need the support of our government and need to come from a non-judgmental place. And we're going to continue to put services into the system, whether it's withdrawal management services, whether it's bed-based services, whether it's day services. We've been working with, service delivery organizations. And again, Your Way Home meets people where they're at, gets them out of encampments into stabilized housing, gets them connected with people with lived experience that have the expertise to, whether it's mental health or addictions, right in their homes. Gets them the supports that they need, something that they so desperately needed for 7.5 years under the former failed government. They were banging on their door, begging them to do something around the addictions issue. They finally have a government that's listening, that's working with them, that's working for them, and that will continue to put services into the system. And again, we increased funding to Aboriginal health and wellness by $1.4 million. We've invested an additional above the 67 million, $1.5 million into the Bruce Oak Foundation, or the Ann Oak Foundation, that'll open fairly soon. And then we're also $1 million for drug checking, $1 million for expanded stabilization withdrawal management services. Thompson, I was up in Thompson in September to celebrate their mobile withdrawal management van. So they're going to and servicing a ton of communities in their region. And you know, they were asking the former failed government, they were asking the member from Fort White, who's now the opposition leader, for these services for years. And would they put those services into play? No, they wouldn't. We now have Bill 12, which the members opposite is holding up. You know, the member from Morden Winkler said that there's red flags around this. Well, certainly we have red flags around them holding up this bill, because this is social and affordable housing. This is taxpayers' money. So I'll ask members opposite through the chair, whose home do they want to sell next?
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I definitely do have more questions, but I'd like to cede the floor to the member for Tyndall Park to ask some questions for the remainder of the day.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I'd like to thank my colleague from Morden Winkler for allowing me some time here this afternoon to ask some questions, as well as the Minister and all of her departmental staff for being here this afternoon and trying to the best of ability to answer questions. The first question I have is, the government promised to hire 100 new mental health workers. Can the Minister provide a clear update on how many have been hired to date and where they are being deployed?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thanks, Honourable Chair, and I want to thank the member for that question. That member knows that there is a great need for these mental health workers. Been several, organizations, whether it's policing, that have been actively, advocating for years for these extra supports into the system. So there was a cross-departmental working group between the Department of Justice, Families and Housing and Addictions and Homelessness that was came together, and we developed a 4-year plan to hire 100 mental health workers through a number of initiatives across Manitoba. The Department of Housing, Addictions, Homelessness and Families and Justice were working together under a shared mandate to hire the 100 mental health workers to collaborate with law enforcement and community organizations. And a working group between the department was established and successfully developed a 4-year plan with 14 initiatives to meet this mandate. Many of the planned initiatives work directly alongside police officers to link Manitobans with timely mental health supports. And again, listening to frontline workers, listening to policing, and I know the members opposite have brought many of those concerns to the floor here, and we've met with several of those organizations and frontline folks. Collectively, these initiatives will make significant impacts on crisis services and will help to build the frontline services necessary to ensure people have access to appropriate supports, while also alleviating pressure on first responders, especially law enforcement. Some of these initiatives involve hiring additional staff for existing services and establishing new partnerships and pilot projects, and or establishing brand new initiatives based on evidence-informed models. So in 2023, the mandate letter for my department was directed to work with Justice to hire 100 mental health workers to work alongside law enforcement and community organizations. Issues such as homelessness, addictions, unemployment, and interactions with the justice system have shown to stem from various factors, including mental health challenges. So expanding the scope of crisis services will ensure that support is available to community members at the right time. The proposed 4-year plan embeds mental health workers in outreach and frontline services to alleviate the need for law enforcement involvement. And year 1 of the plan is currently being implemented. So funding letters have gone out to hire 29 FTEs. And we have hired or are in the process of hiring 21 FTEs. And we'll have 60 hired by the end of this fiscal year.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I'd like to thank the Minister for her answer. I'm going to jump around just a little here to try and get a few different questions in. On safe consumption sites, earlier today I met with members of the University of Manitoba Medical Students Advocacy Group, and who have been advocating and supporting the idea of implementing safe consumption sites here in Manitoba. And they were wondering if the minister agrees with a lot of the initiatives that they're bringing forward, specifically the education component, not only the importance of it, I know the minister agrees and strongly believes in education portion, but how exactly that's going to be done here in Manitoba. Are we talking through billboards, brochures, community centers, just what the plan is to educate Manitobans on safe consumption sites for comfort?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Chairperson. I just wanted to add to the last question and just let the member know that we also made an announcement in October of last year where we announced 22 new mental health workers for our ACT team, which is in complements of our FACT team, which is like a revolving, or not a revolving, but a continuum of care where people, as they need less care or more care, they can move on that continuum. So more services, again, to support people and meeting them there, where they're at, so that they can live in the community successfully and healthy with the supports that they need. We are still in the consultation stage as far as supervised consumption site is. We have been listening, learning, and certainly I've engaged with a number of students, whether that's going to Argyle. I'm an alumni of Argyle, and they had a day where I went for an afternoon, and they had lots of questions and fielding their questions, and we had students come. Several students come to the Manitoba Legislature and bring their questions here. I've gone to Gonzaga, which is in my constituency as well, and they've had questions. So it's been a number of questions from a number of students around, how do we engage, and how can we get involved, and what's that going to look like? So certainly we've been taking that feedback through the consultations. And as an educator myself, the member would know that that's something that I'm very passionate about and want to ensure that we are educating around the supervised consumption side, Aboriginal health and wellness. Also, that's something that they want to ensure that people are aware of. And certainly, the toxic drug supply that is out there. There is. Whenever something comes out on social media, I'm sharing it, and Sunshine House has a site and they're sharing it. And we're now on PHAC, so where our numbers are visible on the drug overdoses in the province here. That's something that I was a strong advocate of. I want to be transparent as a province to, help Manitobans understand where we're at, and that it is an issue in our province, that we should be worried about this, and that as a parent we should also be talking to our kids about this, because it could happen to anyone, and it's not a socioeconomic issue or a gender or an Indigenous issue or a demographic issue. So it doesn't matter, it could happen to anyone. So certainly it's something that is still evolving as we're having conversations, and we're consulting and listening, and we'll continue to do that. And certainly if members opposite have any suggestions, and we're certainly open to listening to those as well, because I know they represent their riding, and I'm sure that their riding, I know they have folks in their riding because they represent Gilbert Park. I spent a lot of time in that constituency. My stepmom and dad and my sisters and brothers grew up in Jigtown, as we called it back then, and that's our Manitoba housing. So we have several folks who live in that riding, and we know that folks need the support, and we need to meet them where they're at in a non-judgmental way. And certainly destigmatizing is a part of the education, and making sure that people are aware of where they can go, how they can access the supports, and just really, why it's important for us to provide these supports and lead people to the four-pronged approach that we're taking, harm reduction, getting people to treatment, and the enforcement is super important, because we need to get these toxic drugs off the streets. And then, of course, education, and which includes ensuring that we've invested in a universal nutrition program. We've seen rates of students returning back to school greater. So attendance rates have improved, which proves that nutrition program is working.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I appreciate the mention of Gilbert Park. There's a very special place in my heart for Gilbert Park, and I can tell the ministers as well, and also for picking up on what I meant in the previous question with respect to comfort was the word that I used, a sense of reassurance that I think can come with education. The more we educate Manitobans, in this case on safe consumption sites, I believe that will go a really, really far way. My next question is about safety and support on social housing. How is the government ensuring that wraparound supports, including mental health and addiction services, are adequately provided to new tenants transitioning from encampments to prevent the reoccurrence of unsafe conditions within social housing units?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech for that question, and certainly safety and security in our buildings in Manitoba Housing is something that is super important to us, and we've been working since we've formed government to put services back into our buildings and to put maintenance into our buildings and, you know, really put that pride back into our properties. We've seen such a decline in maintenance, you know, whether it was boarded up properties, you know, Gilbert Park, you would have seen that, see someone living next to a boarded up unit. We've, you know, done our best to get those boards off and get people into them as soon as possible. Sometimes it's challenging with, you know, people leaving stuff behind. There's a residential tenancy policy we have to follow, so 60 days or 90 days, I think it is. So sometimes those boards are on there because of that, but we're certainly doing our best to get the maintenance done and people in those places and spaces. So strong tenancies are maintained by connecting households in need with services that can best support them. And Norwest is, you know, a great support in your constituency. They have lots of great supports, and our tenant service coordinators are great at connecting people with services that are in their neighborhood. And that was something when I became minister that I directed all of our tenant service coordinators to do, is what are the resources in the community that people can access that are living in our Manitoba Housing buildings and units, so that whether it's, you know, mental health supports or addiction supports or mom and me supports or prenatal supports or primary health care, or if it's they need to go for a food bank, whatever it was, or community building. There's so many different resources that are out there. And our tenant service coordinators were really good at pulling all of those resources together to support folks, to direct them when there was when it was needed. And certainly we've been working to ensure that tenants stay tenanted successfully. So to get in front of any issues, like if someone, we've had suite takeovers, so we've had to, you know, get in front of that and support those tenants. And how do we, because certainly under the former government, they never invested. They divested. They cut mobile security, so there was less security, and we've reinvested in security. We've put 10 new tenant service coordinators in. We've set up a security post where we have all our cameras set up so that we're putting more cameras in our buildings. We're putting key card access. And more importantly, we're putting human resources in so that we're building relationships. We hired an Indigenous coordinator that is going to be working with all of our different units, buildings, so that they can do some community building, whether that's land-based teachings or barbecues to connect people. And, you know, going to the member's question around encampments and our 20% housing, those folks that are coming out of encampments into the 20% Manitoba housing that we've dedicated to those folks, they're going to be receiving wraparound supports. So they will be well supported in their housing. And it's something that was so desperately needed for so long. And like I said, when I came into this role, it was like we need to start doing housing differently, you know, under, you know, some advisement from our amazing ADM, Carolyn Ryan, who's been in this position for 20 plus years. You know, she's seen, you know, the vast majority of, she knows a lot of the folks. She's seen the change in housing, and you know, so we've made a lot of changes in terms of supporting, meeting people where they're at, but also making sure that people can get supports that we can't provide in our housing, so they know where the supports are in the community. And we're going to continue to put in maintenance into our buildings, and certainly, you know, the leader of the opposition is holding up a bill, Bill 12, that could protect our social housing. And, you know, we'd encourage them to not hold up that bill because we don't want to see something like Lions Manor happen again.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Just thinking a little bit more large here, what mechanisms are in place to ensure that the unique challenges of homelessness in rural areas, such as limited access to services and transportation, are adequately addressed in the province-wide rollout of the strategy?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. So we, Your Way Home talks about building in Manitoba, but we didn't start in Manitoba. We actually started with 2 pilot projects. So we did a pilot in Dauphin and we did a pilot in Winnipeg. And Dauphin has been really successful, and I don't know if members opposite has had the chance to read some of the articles that have come out of Dauphin. Very successful, and that's the kind of services that we're providing in our Manitoba housing. So those same wraparound services. Canadian Mental Health Association has been, you know, providing some tremendous amount of supports, whether it's mental health or addictions, meeting people where they're at, getting them connected with some community supports, giving them the hope that they need to get back into the community. I've visited Parkview many times and have been able to connect with folks. Last time I was there was a tenant that was moving in, and I got to meet them, and they were so happy to be moving in, and they actually connect them with someone who's already living there, so they kind of pair them up with someone who's been living there for a while. And, you know, the amount of services that they provide, they bring in primary health care providers into the building. And it's been so successful because they build a community within the building. And the tenant service coordinators are working alongside these folks. So it's not like you're over here, it's not a siloed approach, but it's a team approach. And I really, you know, just want to lift up all of the work that's being done, whether it's in Dauphin, whether it's in Brandon, whether it's in Thompson. We're continuing to build on that work because there's so much great work that's being done across our province, and we're just getting started. You know, we've taken a number of months to work on this strategy, to listen to, you know, frontline organizations, to listen to those who are living unhoused or precariously housed, who have been living in shelters for, many years, that have been in and out of housing because haven't had the supports that they've needed. So we've really, we want to ensure that people are successfully housed, which is why we've put the supports back into tenant service coordinators. We've also put more maintenance money into our own social housing, because that's a crown jewel. We want to ensure that we keep social housing social, and that we're protecting taxpayers' money. And right now that's at risk with Bill 12 being held up. And I said earlier, I asked the members opposite through the chair, like, whose house do they want to sell next? Whose building do they want to sell next? Because they certainly sold 185 Smith, and that was hundreds of units. I have a staff member that's working in my department right now who's our housing coordinator or our casework coordinator, who came from Siloam Mission, that helped house people. He lives in that building. It's a beautiful building. I've been in there. And when I go in there, I kind of feel a sense of like a little bit of anger, because I'm like, imagine how many of our people could have lived in there, Manitobans that are struggling to pay the high rents in our province, right? And we need to, as a government, ensure that we have a responsibility to provide affordable rent, and that's what Manitoba Housing does. And Bill 12 protects that. It ensures that our social and affordable housing that we invest in, 15% or more, stays social and affordable. And if somebody wants to sell it, they have to come and get permission, and that whoever is going to buy it, that it remains the same amount of social and affordable. So, members opposite is holding that up. We would hope that they wouldn't hold that up, because it's at risk for more homes to be sold, and then more people to not be able to pay high market rents. And we're in affordability crisis right now, and you have a leader of the opposition who's holding up a bill that they could just let this pass tomorrow. And we want to work collaboratively and ensure that Manitobans have the affordable option that government is responsible for providing. And certainly Gilbert Park is a big part of that. So thanks for that question.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I thank the Minister for her answer. My next question is on staffing and support services. Are there specific training and support programs being developed to equip staff with the skills required to manage the complex needs of individuals transitioning from homelessness to stable housing? And what are those specific supports and programs?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
So thank you to the member for that question. So Your Way Home talks about our strategy, which is partnering with service delivery organizations who have those skills to support those folks. So whether it's Sunshine House, we just made an announcement on Friday, partnering with 3 organizations, Sunshine House, Main Street Project, and Siloam Mission. They do a remarkable job of supporting and meeting people where they're at. They've been doing this work for a very long time. Sunshine House is supporting queer folk who have been in encampments because, for whatever reason, they need supportive housing where they feel safe and supported and valued and seen, and a place of safety. And certainly Sunshine House has come to the table and providing that. Whether it's Main Street Project, who, on a daily basis is providing, shelter work, but they've, been also a supervised consumption site for a very long time. They've been providing mental health supports, and many of those folks are trained, have had extensive training. Many have lived experience. Siloam Mission, They also do transitional housing, and they've been supporting and meeting folks where they're at for quite a while. And we're working with several other organizations that Aboriginal Health and Wellness is another one of them. And these are organizations that have been working in the sector for a very long time, that come with a lot of experience, that we're very confident that can deliver these services and have the human resources to be able to support and meet people where they're at. And really, it's about giving people hope and knowing that they don't have.
The hour being 5 p.m., committee rise and call in the speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 1:30 p.m. tomorrow.